Hey guys, it only took 3 seasons, but I'm here to do a pure lightning spear build with splintering on a staff. And we got our nice little lightning spear enchant finally getting some use. And we got a big shout out to the Grow Power for giving us a boatload of damage, 61%, and free crit strike chance. This is a very good season for lightning spear, and the scaling on spear has finally been fixed to use the bonus of 3200. So let's smelt this dinosaur. It took me a long time to want to play pure spear, and I think now's the time. It's just in a really good spot right now. There's better builds out there for pit, but for overall, lightning spear is just the best sorcerer build of the season. It's really no contest. It's good in pit. It can speed farm T100 pits in 3 minutes. It can just blast all content, nightmare dungeons, hordes, just everything. It's truly a work of art. And now we're going to move over to the training dummy and see what kind of damage we can get. Alright guys, we're here at the training dummy. So the enchantments for this build are teleport enchant, and that is for Raymond clumping. You really burst down the mobs a lot faster when they're packed together because of the splintering chains. And then lightning spear enchantment. Lightning spear enchantment is necessary. You just don't get enough spears out if you're only using the ball lightning cast and unstable currents. It's only like a 1 in 4 chance, 1 in 5, whatever, to make a spear. So you just need the enchantment, and let's get multiple elites. And one thing to note with splintering is that you are going to see very large spikes in damage somewhat randomly, and that is due to the internal cooldown of splintering. I think it's 0.2 seconds. So if you have a bunch of lightning spears hit enemies, it'll proc, and then for a fifth of a second or so, it won't proc again, and then if it manages to hit a bunch of enemies at once, it'll like store up the number of procs and that damage, and then when it's able to proc again, it'll release, and you'll see 100 billion. So let's just get in here and let's see what kind of damage we can get. My inst snapshotted at 2700. We have enlightenment stacking down. I see 40 billion. Yeah, I'm just seeing anywhere from like 20 to 40, 50, 60 billion. I've seen 100 billion like in the pit and stuff. So this is a legit build. It's smashing. It's super fast. It's great. So yeah, that's that. All right, I'm gonna go over the gear and we're gonna get into a pit. All right, so I'm gonna go over the gear and kind of show you what I'm working with before we get. I'm gonna run a T100 pit just so you know like my level of gearing. I have a really good Shaco. It's got Nagu Ohm, so that I have permanent uptime on Warcry, and the important thing here is just want to hit all those cooldown ranks. Next is Raiment Chest. Obviously, you're going to want to rank up Glass Cannon. I don't have this thing fully masterworked. And then we run Seer Vex so that we can get permanent uptime on +3 skills. So with the Shaco and the Raiment and the Vex, that's going to take us to 12 ranks of Lightning Spear, up from our normal 5. And if you want, you can just run Shroud of False Death if you really don't care about the grouping. I just kind of swap them around at will, and I like to use this when I'm speed farming because things die anyway. Next is Storm Swell Gloves. Biggest thing here, this is just exactly sort of what you want. Int attack speed, crit damage, and then you're really going to want to prioritize critting that crit damage temper down there. And then I run, it's a little, your pants and your boots, they're a bit flexible as to what you can run. There's 3 setups. Let me talk about them. So I like to run Orange Herald pants to reset my ultimate, and I like to run Rakanoth's Wake for movement speed in town. This is actually why I run Rakanoth's, because I was running the other setup is to run Tibalt's, and then you proc your Unstoppable with Flame Shield, and then you just run Orange Herald boots, and then you get your armor and your intelligence here and some evade cooldown reduction. It's really nice, but the optimal way to run this, you don't have any move speed. So when I was in town, I was slow as molasses, so I don't like it. So I run Orange Herald pants, get all my goodies there, standard stuff here, and then I run Rakanoth's, and you just really any masterwork crits on non-fizz or cooldown are fine. You do not care about the unique effect of it whatsoever. Here's the meat and potatoes. It's a splintering staff, int life, crit damage again, and then you're going to want to try and max out this chance for lightning spear to deal double damage. As you can see, my staff's only at 10 out of 12, and I only have 1 hit on chance for lightning spear to deal double damage. So I'm missing a lot of damage here. and it's not, it's not 2-3 GA, etc. Next is your amulet. It's going to be the hardest piece to get. I just put shredding blades on here. You're going to want int, primordial binding, and then whatever you can get, any form of passive that can help you deal more damage, whether that's icy touch, inner flames, or permafrost, or glass cannon. The primordial binding is the most important thing. That's the new Conj mastery. And then next we have our Talrasha. Obviously you want 25%, and then we're going to take cooldown reduction, and non-fizz is fine too. Starless Skies is a little bit up for debate. I think it may be stronger without Starless Skies if you were to take something such as Inner Calm, because when you teleport, you're not counting as moving. So you would probably take Inner Calm on the amulet and then move Shredding Blades down to the ring, just the crit damage ring with attack speed, and nothing too fancy. The biggest thing here too is that this Unstable Currents cooldown reduction roll, you don't want it. It's unnecessary, and I sort of bricked my piece having it. You really want evade cooldown reduction for more evades and more grouping. It just is what it is. So when you're speed farming, you're going to be running Flicker Steps and Snow Veiled Pants. It's a very easy swap. You just go over to the Occultist guy, you just put Snow Veiled on, and it's super fast. The reason you run Flicker Steps is this attacks reduce evade by 2.5 seconds. It's really nice. But this is just my general setup, is Orange Herald and Rakanoths. And then, again, like I said, the Giga Sweaty setup is Orange Herald Boots with Tibalt's Pants, prioritizing max life there. And yeah, you get your Unstoppable from your Flame Shield, but I don't really like that. So let's go over the Witchcraft. Let's go over the Witch Gems real quick. So your summons deal 15% more damage to hacks elites. Super nice. You get 10% more. You get 8% more primary core stat, 10% max life, and you're always unhindered. That's very nice. And then last but not least, your common growth and decay witch powers are 35% more potent. Let's go into the witchcraft powers. The most important one here is grow. Until this is rank 11, you can't really run this build because you need permanent uptime on unstable currents, and then this will make your conjurations deal 61% more damage and always crit, eliminating any need for crit chance in the build. That's awesome. We have the cycle. I use it mainly so that because it's damaging enemies, it spawns a lot and it deals poisoning damage to all the enemies around it, and I use that so that I can apply Hacks of Shattering for the summons deal more damage to Hex elites, just so it's like up all the time. And then I use Aura of Siphoning for your big aura, and then combine that with the aura spec, and this, I believe it's 35% X. I've heard some conflicting reports, but my testing showed me it was 35% X. And then next we take Soul Harvest. The big thing about Soul Harvest right now is I think it's currently bugged, and basically the first time you go into a dungeon, the first time you press it, you're like snapshotted into that buff. It never goes away really, unless like it breaks duration for 15 seconds or whatever. So, try and find a big group of enemies, pop your first cooldown, and then like you'll have that int for the rest of the thing. If you pop your first cooldown next to one enemy, you're just kind of fucked. And yeah, that's what happens there, but that should get fixed. We already went over Grow, and we went over Hex of Shattering. So not too crazy to get. Like we have 2 basic gems that are pretty easy to craft, and then 1 like optional gem. That's one of the tier 3 like legendary ones. So not too difficult to get online. Like the Grow power isn't very expensive to upgrade, and these 2 gems, the Growth of Decay and the Summons ones, are just tier 1s. So it's really not that intensive to get. All right, so let's go into a tier 100. And hopefully we get a big pack right at the start so I can get a good Soul Harvest. Build's been fun though. It's good. It kind of plays similar, pretty similar to, that's fine. So we're snapshotted up at 2900 int. That'll do. And then basically, yeah, you just go around evading, pumping up enemies. If we can get onto a pack while we have Enlightenment active, you'll see a good nuke. Yeah, like that pack right there, just got nuked. Just really looking for elite packs. You want to group them together, and yeah, just cruising. It's super fast. I was wondering, there was a pretty large variance in a lot of my runs, and I couldn't figure out why, and it was the Soul Harvest thing, where you really need to find like a nice little pack. This is a really strong build. I think this build is Sorcerer's best overall build. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on with the Inferno builds and that like meme Deep Freeze, Overpower, Shatter build, and I'm not going to partake in those. I just like standard builds that are good across all content. I don't like pit-only builds. After this run, I'll go over the skill tree and the Paragon and some things to note. So we're still snapshotted on that 2900 int, because we never broke our Soul Harvest, so that's good. Probably should have turned my damage numbers off, but we just saw 130B, so that's good. Just like instantly nuking packs in T100. And my gear was good. Don't get me wrong, my gear's good, but you know, my weapon isn't fully there. My staff mainly, so there's a lot of damage that I'm missing out there. You know, about 2 minutes to reach the boss, if I can get lucky and just find another elite. And the bosses aren't too bad. We got Hive Master. I don't think he's one of the good bosses, but we should be okay. We got Enlightenment ticking down during the stagger phase. That's pretty good. When I get what's his face? When I get Spirit Caller, I really nuke him. The Lightning Spear enchant, so teleport enchant obviously for the Raymond stuff, but like this Lightning Spear enchant is really important in terms of like just keeping up your spears, because unstable currents alone just like isn't enough. You really do need the spear enchant, especially for pit. If you're speed farming, you can take something like Frost Nova enchant or Ice Blade enchant, just something. You can take the Ice Blade. You can take the Ice Blade nodes where they, you know, you have more attack speed, etc. So no, overall this run about 3 minutes and some change. So really not terrible at all. All right, let me just upgrade a glyph real quick. I've been upgrading Eliminator because that is in the build. All right, let's talk about this. Let's go into the skill tree. So skill tree and okay, so 2 points in Firebolt just to progress, and then I do take Destructive Charge Bolts, and that's for the charge bolts that I make during Unstable Currents to give me DR. And then just like 1 point Devastation because I don't really need Potent Warding. I don't take any points in Flame Shield because I have Shaco on, but obviously, you know, you just take a point out somewhere. I don't know, maybe 1 point out of Hoarfrost or 1 point out of Invigorating Conduit, or just like 1 point out of Teleport if you needed to get your Flame Shield. Max out Teleport, and then I want the Shimmering Teleport for the DR. We're going to max out Glass Cannon, and then we want our Ice Armor uptime because it's really important for stacking up Enlightenment that we're spamming Ice Blades and Ice Armor, so Shimmering's pretty important. With Ice Blades, yeah, I like the cooldown. Yeah, you need the cooldown because you need to be spamming Ice Blades, but for speed farming, like I was saying, you know, you could run Invoked. 3 points in protection for a barrier. And because we have Shaco, you know, we're getting a really fat barrier from our Ice Armor, so anytime we pop that, max life barrier. I'm going to update my build guide, but I've seen a lot of Roaring Lightning Spear, and what I've been told, and from my own testing, this doesn't work with Splintering, unfortunately. It was really novel in theory, and, you know, if it does get hotfixed, I'll change the thing, but until then, I'm just going to run Invoked to stun and stagger bosses faster. And then here's the big one, the big change, Primordial Binding. You get 10 stacks. And then right now I'm currently getting 18% summon damage. So when this is fully stacked, which it is all the time, 180% damage, max move speed, and a boatload of mana regen. And that's sort of why Starless isn't really necessary, because you have so much mana regen. Mana shield for DR, And then invoked familiar. You make familiars during unstable currents, so this gives you 10% more lightning damage. Inner flames, 18% damage while healthy. Just the bare minimum in ball lightning. We're just after this crackling energy because we need it for our lightning spear enchant. So next we have invigorating conduit. Just helps bolster back up our mana from picking up crackling. And then we have Hoarfrost for damage to all the frozen with our freeze tempers. Icy touch for damage to vulnerable. And again, permafrost. This is all damage. It's not just frost skill damage. It's all damage when you have a frost skill on the action bar. The text is wrong. Elemental synergies for more lightning damage. You know, cooldown here. And then just the bare minimum, the 1 point here and the 1 point here for the attack speed from unstable currents. The cooldown is so low because of Shaco, it's not really necessary. Ver's Mastery is an option. It's not very good. It's 25% DR, it's 10% damage when you're mobbing, and it's 50% damage when you are bossing, but Enlightenment's going to be the better passive. I don't exactly know how much damage you're getting out of Enlightenment in this build, but I don't know. It's better. We've tested it with Ver's, without Ver's, with Enlightenment. Enlightenment's just better. Make sure my enchantments are good, and let's go into the Paragon. So, Paragon, the one time we don't use fundamental release. So, the big thing we're looking for here is crit strike damage, which we can see here on Searing Heat, and we can see it here on Static Surge. And yeah, that's what we have. So we put rare node boosters there, but let me start off the top. So we have Destruction on the starter, because out of all the boards that we have that don't have crit strike damage, it has the largest amount of dex. So we get, 59 dex here to really bolster up our crit strike damage and increase our bonus because of the legendary bonus there, which really bolsters up our bonus. Then we take Elementalist on Static Surge, a quick path through here before you get all these extra points. And we take Elementalist here. It's very cheap to get this, and the lightning damage is nice, but we're after this crit strike damage. It's 275% bonus to the crit strike damage is massive. Next, we move into Searing Heat. So Searing Heat, I have Tactician, and again, that's the boost to crit. That's the boost the crit strike damage here, and the fire damage actually has a little bit of play. I've been told by Zeramos that the fire damage nodes aren't really worth it, the extra ones, because the value of just getting 5 int is larger than the value of 10 fire damage when Enlightenment's active, but this one is worth it because it's just so much fire damage. And then we path up here, and again, Searing Heat, it's just 60% increased direct damage. Next, we're going to move into Elemental Summoner. So this is where I would put Eliminator right here, a bunch of elite damage. The main reason for running Eliminator here is the bonus to all the normal nodes. It gives you a bunch more intelligence. And the big thing too is because in builds that run Raiment, sometimes you have issues hitting these willpower wrecks. Like right here, I'm not hitting the willpower wreck. I'm not hitting this max life wreck. The only reason I'm close on these dex ones is because I'm using an all stats incense. So you can either run Exploit, or if you already have that leveled, that's totally fine. Or you can run Eliminator here. Another option too is Territorial, but I digress. You get the Elemental Summoner node for 60% more damage with your conjurations. There's some good attack speed, conj damage, and conj cooldown all up in here. And just a bunch of conj damage in general, and some non-fizz. Like right here, I'm not hitting it. Anyways, we're going to go on to Frigid Fate for the 60% damage to vulnerable enemies. There's a little bit of additive here, there's some additive down here, Vuln, some max life, Vuln DR. But Unleash is really good here because, like I said, it can be hard to hit these rare node wrecks. So I like Unleash because it helps the mana regen too, because you get 25% more. You could put Exploit on here; it might be a little bit more damage, but just the fact, we wouldn't take Exploit. You take Unleash because you want to boost these magic nodes for the non-fizz for Enlightenment, and that's the build, and that's the build guide, and it's fun, and it's like, let's put on our flicker steps, and you can sort of just see just how fast it is, especially if I had an evade cooldown reduction temper here, and then if I had GA cooldown here, GA cooldown here, if I had GA cooldown here, or even on Chaco, just There's a possibility that you evade every attack and not every two, like I am. And ball lightning can get up to, it can get upwards of, you know, 4 to 5 frames, 4 to 5 attacks per second, because it can get down to like 12 frames, 14 frames per cast. That's the reason why the build uses ball lightning, because it attacks just, it's like the fastest attacking skill that Sork has, and it makes all this crackling to utilize our lightning spear enchant. Like let's see. So right now, you know, we have 10 spears out, we're picking up crackling, we're keeping that going. Let's take off lightning spear enchant and just see how many spears we get during unstable currents. You can see we're at like 1 spear, 7 spears, 6. It's just not the same as to when you put this back on and you're picking up all this crackling. Come on, don't let me down. Give me my unstable currents back. I've got to show these people. 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's clearly needed. The lightning spear enchant's clearly needed, and teleport's great. And like I said, when you're speed farming, you might be able to take off lightning spear enchant for Frost Nova if you want to have some fun, or ice blades, and take the ice blade makes you attack faster node. So that's the build guide. It's super great. It's so good in the Undercity for farming when you're doing, where are they? When you're doing Tribute of Refinement rotos. It's so good in Nightmare Dungeons. It's going to be great in Hordes. It's good for bossing. It's good for all content, and it can speed farm hundreds. What more is there not to love? Rest in peace, Frozen Orb. This is what we got this season. This is stronger than Ball Lightning, and it's really not that difficult to build. I'm going to be honest. Like, yeah, you need the mythics, but after that, you need an amulet and a staff. Like, your gloves are like whatever. You just need a good amulet. But all right, I hope you guys liked it. Thanks for listening. I think that's all I really had to go over. All right, gotcha.